There's a lot of really, helpful points on the head. The third eye, or yin tang, is what they called in Chinese medicine. So again, applying a little bit of pressure, it's just enough to kind of really put a sense of ease and relaxation within to the body. And again, you can be, just doing that, sat on the bus or in the tractor or anywhere for that matter. But yeah, it's a really, really good point to kind of really calm the mind, ground, and just, even earth sort of into everything sort of being anxious and up in your head and causing that anxiety to flare up. We're kind of just sending that energy back down and trying to just calm the mind. And
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. It's my pleasure to be interviewing Mitch Macgregor. We're down in Albany this weekend. Well, I'm down in Albany and Mitch lives here in this beautiful town. And so we're going to be talking about some self-help things you can do for yourself, common things that are maybe because of living in a rural area, some common ailments and things like that you can maybe use some self-help things of Chinese medicine for, and just some things that I found with my trip down here, about how great it is to reflect on nature and what that means for us in health and longevity in Chinese medicine. So welcome, Mitch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I've known Mitch for a few years. You were a student of mine back in the day, a long time ago.
Yep.
And Mitch has had a really enriching journey in learning Chinese medicine because he learned it first in Australia, then went to the UK, learned it in the UK.
Yep.
Again, almost had to start all over again. Came back to Australia just because of the COVID situation, and now is really just establishing a new practice in the great southwest of WA, in Albany.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, a little bit fractured, but I think it's all part of the learning. And if anything, it makes you, it makes you the practitioner that you are, with all the adversity and different challenges that have been laid in front of me.
Yeah, and you've certainly come through a lot of those things better off for it.
I think so. It's not your conventional sort of form of getting trained and then going straight into practice, but I think if you look back and reflect on it, it's probably a good thing that there was a little bit of time in between to learn different ways, and especially different countries as well. Yeah. Just seeing the difference between Australia and the UK.
Yeah. What are some of the big differences? Because people, I get a lot of people asking me about where they can study, and there's lots of people watching this from the UK.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the differences that you found in the training, comparing like the degree you did in Australia, the degree you did in the UK?
So the degree in Australia is a 4-year Bachelor of Health Science, whereas in the UK it's only a 3-year, and I think they call it a Lanciette. So it's kind of it's a little bit different. So I think as far as being sort of trained in Australia, you get a little bit more time, and the study program is a little bit more emphasis on what you're learning. So it's not as rushed, and you've got a little bit more time to sort of learn and practice in that respect. But I mean, having said that, the quality of the training over there is still very, very high. There's lots of colleges spread out all over the country. They still do some, there's traditional Chinese medicine, and there is a lot of 5-element sort of base theory as well. So I transitioned over from what I'd learned at Endeavour in that sort of traditional sense, and just finished off the degree at a college that was providing the same content.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I mean that, and also I guess the types of patients you might see in the UK, because the weather patterns are vastly different. I mean, actually Albany is probably very similar to the UK.
Yeah, it is a
what
little
I
bit,
can feel. Yeah.
I mean, with the UK, obviously it's cold. It can be very wet. So you get a lot of dampness. So a lot of conditions and a lot of clientele that are coming in with dampness related conditions, especially the elderly as well, sort of mobility issues, pain, that type of thing. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but yeah, having said that, Perth is quite a high temperature, dry heat, but then down here in the Great Southern it is a little bit more, it can be wet, can be quite sort of windy, very, very seasonal, but yeah, a little bit more aligned to probably the UK.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, and so what about like working in a rural practice versus working in the country? In the city. are there like some of the things you found about working in a rural practice that have been like you thought, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that?
Yeah. I mean, Albany, I think it's the fifth largest town or city in the state outside of Perth, Geraldton, and in that respect. So it's got about 40,000 people, but it is a little bit of a central kind of meeting point. A lot of people coming off the Nullarbor, coming from Esperance, or coming down from Perth to Pilbara, or through the Goldfields. So it is a little bit of a meeting point. So whilst there is quite a vast area of rural settings of farmers and a lot of sort of agricultural industry, it is a little bit of a funnel and a channel sort of coming in. A lot of people will come in to do different things in the town and coincide, treatments or repairs or picking up supplies. So it is good in that respect. So we're able to kind of provide a support service for a lot of different communities, sometimes 2, 3, 4 hours away, that type of thing.
Yeah. So it's like some of your regular patients are 4 hours drive away
Absolutely.
before they could even get to see you.
Yeah.
And it must be hard for people living so far from any medical services, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them might just have a post office and a supermarket and a service station and a few other amenities. But yeah, it can be quite a remote setting. Lots of farmers. So living and working on the land, labour intensive jobs, so quite harsh on the body, repetitive and strained, long days, long hours and quite manual work. So yeah, they will come in from quite a far stretch.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of the things that you would suggest for people, like if they are unable to come in for the treatment as regularly as they normally? So often with acupuncture, people have to come in once a week, twice a week. Some practices even do treatments 3 times a week. That sort of thing would not be possible with some of your clients in some of those settings.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are some things that you do? Because you were telling me about that before.
I suppose we offer quite a lot of support as far as what they can do to help themselves if they can't get into an acupuncture or a treatment when they're presented with an acute condition. So acupressure is really, really good. Just applying pressure to the area where we would ordinarily insert a needle to help with that sort of condition. So giving them just a lot of sort of helpful tips, advice, describing what they can do when they're in a situation where they're either on a tractor or out in the field with livestock and fleecing lambs and whatnot, and they've something's flared up, and they're able to kind of apply a little bit of acupressure to maybe mediate what's happened and give them a bit of time to get into to see us or coincide with a trip into town. So what kind of acupressure points would you recommend people use for different things? Generally it's a lot of sort of pain, acute pain. So one of the best points for pain is Hergu, so large intestine 4. So on the hand. Just applying a little bit of pressure with your thumb or whatever's comfortable, and that can also help anything to do with the head and the face. So the headaches, the strains on the neck, the muscles within the shoulders, and just that can alleviate
and for toothache as well.
Toothache, jawache,
It could be something that you need to see a dentist and you just can't get in to see one. Because you can't drive there right now.
You can't just make an appointment really quickly. Exactly.
And you're in so much pain. And what do you recommend people do? Like, how do they do it? Like, people don't know how to do that sort of acupressure. What would they do?
Well, within the clinic, we'd obviously sort of show them and demonstrate, make some videos and sort of post online as well. But generally, within a clinic, we'd sort of just let them know, look, this is going to help you at the moment, but obviously, you might be out in the paddock. And just sort of demonstrate either on yourself or on them as well, and get them to sort of experiment a little bit and let them know what they're supposed to experience and and how to really apply that when they're in a situation where it's very necessary or just extremely helpful.
So there's some points that are really specific to a particular condition. It's not sort of a one size fits all for some things, but that's a good one. People can press that. And the thing I'd normally let people know is, like, if you press it wrong, you're not either finding the right point or you've got the wrong point. It's very hard to do something wrong to yourself with acupuncture, acupressure. You can't kind of, I don't know, put your body more out of balance by pressing the wrong point usually.
Yeah.
And if you pay attention to how it feels for yourself, you don't press it so hard that you're bruising it. Sometimes people really, they're in so much pain, they're pressing and pressing. And that's good if it's relieving the pain, but then you could either just swap to the other side if it's so hard.
Yeah.
But like you don't, I mean, the worst you could do is maybe bruise the skin because you're pressing it so hard.
Yeah.
So that's one of the points. What are some other points for pain that you'd recommend people could use?
Probably particularly for headaches and sort of that pain that they're getting up the back of their head or in the occipital area. So gallbladder 20, which is sort of at the base of the skull in the little hollow tender points. So it's just getting your thumb or whatever they're comfortable with, and just again applying a little bit of pressure in that area. Not enough that it's going to, as you said, bruise or pierce the skin or anything like that, but just enough that they can experience a sensation, and then just to whatever they're comfortable with.
And maybe we should show them how to find it because they won't know what that is.
Yeah.
What's a gallbladder 20 when you're at home? So the other thing is you could get your partner to do this on you. So if you have even some kids, you can get your kids to. Like a lot of people try to get their kids to give them a massage, but they won't do that. But maybe if you just sort of turn around a little bit here, so because you've got the greatest neck ever to show this. So you've got sort of this hollowy sort of space down underneath the bone. So if you want to sort of press where the bone is, and you just kind of come down into that gap, and then you've got sort of a big space in here, and you can just kind of press. Something I do often is sort of press that and then get their head and push their head into my thumb. Not hard, but that's quite strong, isn't it? And I've not put any pressure with my finger. So if you're sort of like, oh, my hands are sore too, I've got arthritis and I can't really press too hard or something, then you can use your thumb or your finger as a pointer and then just tilt their head. You're not trying to do anything weird to their neck or anything, but just push their head slightly into that point. You can just use your two fingers or a finger and a thumb and just push up into that area, and you can just kind of grab this muscle here, which is like the outer fibers of your trapezius muscle, and you just kind of can do it so that the person's comfortable. If they say, oh, that's too hard, don't keep pressing because you're probably pressing them way too hard. So that's a good point, that gallbladder 20. And then just kind of even massaging down there a little bit and just using your thumbs to roll across. That can be a good one to do. If you can't find it on your, if you've got no one else to press it on you, it's just you can use your own thumb, and you can just kind of find that hollow between there and just use your thumb and then use your own head to push back on your head.
Yeah, you're applying the pressure already just by, tilting your head back.
And you're like, oh wow, I can really... And you can just hold that point. If you've got a headache, you could just hold it there until the headache starts to ease a little bit. Yeah, so that's a good one, that gallbladder 20. And you could actually look at those points up on Google or Google Images because they're standard names. Like the name means the channel it's on, the gallbladder channel, and the number 20 is like the Chinese medicine way of identifying where these points are, like some kind of numerical method. They do have names like Acupuncture, but you probably think like, what the fuck is
get a bit confused.
It's a bit hard to Google those names unless you're Chinese. So that's a good one. The gallbladder 20 is really
it's always
good.
really effective.
Another one for stress, like what would you like? A lot of people have stress, and they might not be like, a medical condition, but they're just stressed. Like life is stressful. What points would you recommend people use for stress?
When you're talking about stress, you're kind of relating it back to a bit of anxiety. So using the channels that are related to sort of those organs that are going to be affiliated with anxiety, so the heart and the pericardium. So pericardium 6 is probably one of the most important and really often used points in a clinic setting. Really easy to find on the wrist, and again applying a little bit of pressure. So it's with your three fingers coming back from where the wrist crease is, and where your fingers are lying on your arm, it's in between the two tendons. Yeah. So again, applying a little bit of pressure, enough to elicit a sensation, but not enough to cause a bruise or a mark or an indentation. And it sometimes can be a matter of applying it for a few seconds, relieving it, applying it, until you feel a sense of, a little bit of anxiety relief, changing over hands as well, and just sort of dipping into it, dipping out of it like that.
Yeah, and that's a good one you can do if you're stressed and you don't want people to sort of know that you're stressed, you're pressing a point. You can just be doing it while you just, I could just be pressing it right now, you wouldn't even know.
Exactly.
You just kind of can hold your own hand and sort of press into it.
Yeah.
And this whole channel is your pericardium channel, sort of just between in the right and the centre. So most people have got two very prominent, or at least one very prominent tendon there, and they can kind of just press in there, and even just massage up and down that
the whole channel. Yeah. It will be tender in certain points, so you can kind of move your thumb around, and where it is that particularly tender, maybe just apply a little bit of pressure at that particular point.
Yeah, that's always the best advice to when you're finding acupuncture points on a patient. Even like we often are looking for the most sore point within that little vicinity. So if you can identify that for yourself, that's better than you trying to go, but you said it has to be this amount of measurement.
Everyone's going to be a little bit different anatomically, and it's it is just sort of finding that particular point on yourself.
So that's a good one. So that's good for like if people are worried or, like you said, anxious. Any other points for stress that you recommend?
There's a lot of really helpful points on the head. So the third eye, or yin tang is what they're called in Chinese medicine. So again, applying a little bit of pressure, not enough to cause an indentation, but it's just enough to kind of really put a sense of ease and relaxation within to the body. And again, you can be just doing that sat on the bus or in the tractor or anywhere for that matter. But it's a really, really good point to kind of really calm the mind, ground, and just even earth sort of into everything sort of being anxious and up in your head and causing that anxiety to flare up. We're kind of just setting that energy back down and trying to just calm the mind and really, really effective point.
Yeah, so and sometimes I recommend people squeeze it like together, because if you pinch it together, you're kind of pressing the point that way.
You're activating,
Yeah, and they can press that, and then you can go across your forehead into this one here, which is Tai Yang, and they can just, like where your temples are,
massage that.
You massage that. I think a lot of people don't realise there's a big muscle underneath that area, and that muscle actually goes all the way around your head. Quite big, that temporalis muscle, and that's where a lot of people feel a temporal headache, and also because that muscle attaches to your jaw, like your zygomatic arch.
That tension,
if you're clenching your teeth, or grinding, or a lot of people hold tension in their face from being stressed, and that point can really help just alleviate that.
They might not realise they are actually clenching their jaw until they actually, apply a little bit of mild pressure in their whole face, and their jaw just kind of relaxes. Absolutely.
So these are like acupressure points you can use on yourself. You can give your partner a massage. I mean, that's something maybe we could talk more about, is how people could help their partners, like, self-help because sometimes you want to, especially if you're stuck in that raw area and you can't go and see somebody. I mean, it's never the perfect scenario treating your own self. Even acupuncturists who treat their own selves don't. It's not as good as someone else treating you when you need that, because you need someone to help you sometimes with the diagnosis, being objective about it. But these are all things you can do to maintain things, maybe stop them from escalating so severely. Maintain the results you're getting through in between treatments. Another point that's a good one, I think, is for the stress and the musculoskeletal stuff, is probably the gallbladder 34 point on your legs, sort of here. And that
it will be a little bit tender as well. So if you sort of come up the muscle.
Your leg up a tiny bit. There we go. So coming up this way, that's a really good point. And then when you hit this bone, which is the head of your fibular bone, you like stop there and come back down a bit, right?
Just your finger will literally just slot into a little hollow.
And the thing that's really good with this point is the bird pecking method. This kind of like in plain Chinese medicine we call that digital striking. So just kind of this sort of if you're really pressing it quite hard, you'll get that clicking sound from it.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do it very much. You just do it a couple of times. And it's like, whoa, that's really can
you
kind
can
of
feel
that.
the energy moving, a bit of a shift, And it's the same on both legs as well. So, you know, mixing it up as well. If one gets a little bit too painful, or, you know, it's really, really helpful.
Because something you guys teach as part of your practice, other practitioners are involved in teaching like Qigong and Tai Chi and those kinds of practices, right?
Absolutely,
and that's like another branch of Chinese medicine that is primarily about preventative stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Chinese medicine and acupuncture is a preventative health system, and it's about sort of maintaining your health before you get to that point where you, you know, you're in a state of unwellness or disease. So it's making sure that the lifestyle and the diet and everything that you're doing within a daily life, you're all doing so to preserve life and make sure that your health is in, you know, optimum levels, to prevent, if you are, you know, getting sick, it might not be as sick as what you ordinarily get if you're, you know, maintaining that healthy lifestyle.
Well, those are really good tips for people. So we've got some points for stress, points for pain, musculoskeletal tightness, neck headache,
anxiety, nausea.
So we've kind of covered many of the common things, common symptoms. And certainly those things can be very distressing to you. Like if you're in pain and you're in the middle, it's the middle of the night, and you're just like, what, you know, and you're stuck in, like many of your patients are sort of 5 hours drive or 4 hours drive away from something. But I mean, you could use these at any time, even if you're waiting. Sometimes you in the city, you could be waiting to get an appointment because your practitioner's so busy or is booked out or something like that. And you know, I've had lots of patients recently in the last couple of probably 6 months or so that you know, they can't go out to get treatments because of having to do COVID isolation or something, and they're still, you know, really in pain and really need that help. And this is something that they can kind of do. You know, when they're in those situations, it's good. It's really.
It's also particularly for people that don't want to take any medications, and you know, they're just trying to do a natural way to kind of, you know, get their body back into a state of balance. So instead of, you know, going for the over-the-counter pain medication, the acupressure is going to be, you know, incredibly helpful and effective in that sense as well. And doing it from the comfort of your own home when you are in a little bit of a situation where you might not be, you know, in a state where you feel like getting out or going somewhere. You can do it in the comfort of your own home.
Thanks so much for sharing your tips with us. This is really great. I think that's really powerful. It's very simple and it's very effective. Like, and sometimes we forget, even as, you know, practitioners, you forget how great these things are because you just know them and they're all around you. They're all, you know, but they are very useful.
They're second nature for us, but often, people are, you know, not really aware that they're there. They're really easy to find, and they can be really effective in an acute situation. Or people that just experience, you know, symptomatic conditions, you know, infrequently. It can just be, you know, really helpful to sort of have that little tool in your toolkit to know that you can help yourself. You know, when you can't get into an appointment or you're quite a fair distance away from getting into a city centre in that sense.
It's can be tricky. Okay. Cool. And so in your practice, like here, like what have you noticed, like as a person living in this beautiful, because Albany, if you're not aware, it's amazing. Like there's so much nature and like everywhere you go, there's a different scenic, beautiful thing. There's a lot of rolling hills and a lot of ocean, and the ocean is crystal clear and turquoise blue. I mean, today it's a very stormy day and it's a bit overcast, but it's a very different lifestyle to living in the city. And you've come from living in England, where we've been in the city.
Very busy.
You've lived in the capital cities before. Like, from a Chinese medicine longevity perspective, what do you find that's different about, like, what do you find that's beneficial about living here?
I think obviously it's the pace of life. It's a little bit more relaxed and quieter, not as fast paced. So I think a lot of people sort of do that tree change at a particular point in their life when the busy lifestyle of the cities, they're just really hectic. and just really fast paced. So it's kind of taking a step back, going into a more slower and more scenic environment. And as you said, there's the Stirling Ranges, the Corongarups are not too far, and the Great Southern Ocean. So you've got a lot of healing energies, a lot of really good sort of grounding powers that you can get out into nature, and just sort of really, get into that state where you're not sort of surrounded by concrete and freeways and buildings. Really, really important for the mind and for the body, just to kind of be able to get out into nature. So I think just having that relaxed, slower pace is really, really important. And just, applying the time to get out, daily, and just, making sure you get at least, 30, 40 minutes just out into nature, breathing the fresh air, getting, really nice sunlight on your skin, getting your feet in the sea or your toes in the soil if you're going for a walk. It's, you feel better for it. Yeah. And life's just a little bit more relaxing, a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if you're in the city, there's ways you can do that as well. Like you make time to go out.
Yeah.
You can find those. I'm sure within wherever people are in the world, there are places sometimes that's all you can do at the time. Like you can go to a park, you can drive to the beach and just be at the beach, or make the time to go on. It's all about, I think it's about making the time, because we all have the same time, but we just choose it.
Yeah, investing in yourself, I think, is really important. That's great.
Yeah, and there is something very peaceful in the combination of those elements in Chinese medicine, like seeing, the wind and the water and the earth and the fire. Like you can almost encompass, if you're out in nature like that, there's something about that, isn't it? That's very grounding to us. I mean, if people are struggling with being able to be still in those times, I would recommend that you just do it a little bit at a time and don't give yourself too much expectation, because I'm kind of person that doesn't do all that stuff. I'm just like, I don't have time to give to that. I'd rather be editing my podcast in front of my computer doing something. But then if you just do it in little bits, it's not so overwhelming where you sit there thinking, no, I don't know how to do this, I'm not very good at this, just little bits, and then you get better at being stiller, or better at allowing yourself to have that time and noticing what it kind of does for you. But it's lovely to live in a place like this. And that's you're probably going to live longer than me if you stay down here. live 100 healthy years down here. It's really lovely. Awesome. Living out here is a massive change for you with all this, and you're just obviously exposed to this beautiful countryside and the land and that connection. But since we've been catching up down here, I've really noticed you've made some really big changes in how you live, and there's quite a few other people that you're well connected with in this community that do the same things, which would be very different for people in a city life. Like, not many people would want to commit to that as wholeheartedly as you have. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of those changes that you've
I suppose
made.
the shift of coming out of a city and coming into more of a rural setting is that there's a lot more agriculture and farmland here, so lots more farmers, so you've got a lot more access to fresh produce, as opposed to going straight to a supermarket. There's lots of farmers markets on the weekends, and just sort of door-to-door type stuff, like cellar door type access to fresh fruit and vegetables, and meat and produce in that respect. So I think the shift for us was, getting involved within the community, meeting, like-minded people, and just making those connections and networks throughout the community that, people have excess vegetables, excess fruits, and, going directly to them rather than going through a supermarket, and also less pesticides and processing of that. So the spray-free, the organic, that type of scene that we're finding is much more beneficial and healthy for us. So I think we've made a little bit of a shift in the choices that we make in the foods that we eat, that it's trying to be spray free, trying to have organic where best we can. The rainfall that we get down here as well, so a lot of people have rainwater tanks, so it's drinking really good filtered rainwater, and just putting in really good sort of fuel into your body that is in turn is going to make you feel better in that respect. So that's probably been the big shift I think we've noticed. Just feeling better, lighter, clearer, and just the nutrition of the food that we're getting. You can taste it and feel it within your diet.
Yeah, it's really good that you can do that, and I feel really concerned about diet for people in the city, and just concerned for society. Living in the city, where food's coming from, all that production, because there is this basic understanding in Chinese medicine that you should fix your body with diet and lifestyle first. If that doesn't work, then use medicine, as in, then use herbs, then use supplements. That all should not be the first port of call, right? But even if people are willing to do all that, what is the quality of the food that we're getting? And that was a question I was asked recently about the supplements thing, because if you are eating as healthy a diet as you possibly can, should you still take? Do you still need to take supplements? I mean, we really don't know. What in Chinese medicine, when they say a carrot has these properties, that Han Dynasty fucking carrot is going to be different to a carrot now, right?
Modern carrot,
and you're do we have a way to compare? Do we know that these things should have this stuff in them and they don't have that in them anymore, right?
I think it's the flavour as well. You buy a carrot from Coles or Woolies and compared to a local farmer, you can taste the difference. The flavours there, the nutritional values there. So I think a lot of food these days, they're packed full of fibre, but they seem to be quite void of nutritional value. They get sprayed with a hell of a lot of chemicals. They get picked before they're ripe. They get frozen. They get transported. They get sprayed with waxes to make them look, fancy and glossy. If you get into sort of, produce and livestock, the hormones, steroids that they're sort of pumped full to make them grow faster, and
then you're eating all of that.
You're processing all that. So I think it's really important that there is still industry out there that are trying to work within the land on a permaculture or a biodynamic way, and you can still get really incredible food that hasn't been either packed full of preservatives or pesticides and sprays to make its shelf life extend longer. Really, really important. And even the clients that we're finding that even though they're working out in the field in an agricultural environment where they're exposed to natural sunlight, they're still vitamin D deficient. So it can be there's absorption issues within the diet, that we're not getting it through foods as well as from the sun. So it's understanding that there is a connection between what's getting put on the land and put into the waterways, and then what we're consuming. Just like you would eating seafood from the sea. There's that sort of bioaccumulation. That's it's really interesting. And when you do feel that change within your diet, after sort of just, it's not all the time. Some people it can be quite expensive having organic produce, but if you choose the meals or just choose the times and just commit or apply a little bit more to that type of scenario, then you can start to feel a little bit healthier.
And I guess if you've got the opportunity to grow things within a community and share some things, you can lessen the cost, what you guys are doing. You actually share rainwater with different people.
With neighbours.
Some have tanks, some don't have tanks. You get your eggs from down the road.
You meet people at the local markets. There's free range organic chooks. You sort of just start to network through the community, and growing your own stuff on the land as well. Having just raised garden beds or anything that you can to grow vegetables. There's so many videos that you can look up, on how to source these, how to propagate seedlings, and how to grow your own produce. And the taste is it's just second to none. It's incredible.
Definitely. That's a good point to bring out, because that's part of Chinese medicine theory, is that flavour is the function. And if you're able to just identify that flavour, and I think that's also what puts a lot of people off when if they're not used to cooking at all. Like I'm talking about people that are, their idea of cooking would be, I bought a jar sauce and some pasta and I've cooked that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And okay, that's better than something else worse than that.
Yeah.
But the flavour that just comes from those organic foods or like vegetables and stuff, you generally don't need a lot of these added flavours like salt or sugar, other things that are added in just to make those things.
The flavours are going to be within the vegetables themselves.
Yeah.
And eating the colours of the rainbow, so you're going to get the nutritional benefits from so many different varieties. It's really important to make sure you have all the colours, and within the seasons as well. There's going to be different foods that are growing in a different climate at a particular time of year. Harnessing what's being available. Winter at the moment, so we're having more hearty stews and casseroles and soups, so that sort of really dense, yin nourishing, blood nourishing foods that are really going to be helping you maintain your energy and harnessing sort of what's available at the moment rather than what's being shipped in from another country, grown on another platform. Yeah.
And you don't know. It's very hard for people to tell, I think, if they're not in any connection with the land or their own produce growing, what is in season, because it's just like everything's available all the time and we don't know if it's been stored or whatever like that. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and your time and sharing those acupressure points. It's been really great.
Yeah.
Mitch's clinic, it's down here in Albany, and we'll pop the link below if you want to find out more about having a consultation with him. He's an acupuncturist here, and there's also a really good network of other holistic practitioners that he works with here in Albany. We're sitting in his beautiful clinic at the moment. Hopefully you can still hear us because it's raining very heavily today.
Bit of a storm.
It was hailing on the way here,
yeah.
But we've been very blessed not to have too much rain disturbing our recording today. But thank you so much for your time, and if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you click that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and you'll never miss an episode. If you want to learn more about Chinese medicine, please scroll through some of the videos and find something that's interesting to you, and you can ask a question about that and I'll try to answer your questions. Thank you so much, Mitch, for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again on another episode soon. Thank you. So thanks very much for your time, Mitch. It's been so great to talk to you.
Thank you.
And sharing your expertise with us, your knowledge. If people are interested in contacting Mitch for an appointment, he works out of this clinic we're in here in Albany, but he also has another practice in Denmark, and that's very close by.
About 45 minutes. Yeah.
Close by for this region.
Yeah. Not too far.
45 minutes from here. So services a lot of clients all through this southwest region. So whichever one's more convenient for you to attend. We'll put the links below for his clinics there, and you can contact him directly. Thank you very much for your time. It's been really great.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.